Mommy. Hey, Alex. Boy, is he dead too?
Do you like maps? How about a detailed hand-drawn map that reflects your favorite people, places, and things? Visit Cartograph Me on Instagram or Facebook and see the possibilities and the works of artist Philip Bailey. Remember, Cartograph Me, putting you on the map.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
From the prime time, bitch!
Monmouth and a Fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
We've got to return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm Rowan.
It's Xylia.
And I'm a doctor, Mike.
And we are back for the final episode of Octoberfest. Oh, what a time it's been. Yeah, so before we get into anything about this episode, we wanted to read some responses from the question we asked literally this morning before we're recording this episode. We asked the Instagram people out there what they thought of Daniel Isn't Real. And if you're listening to this episode and you aren't listening to our last episode, it was on Daniel Isn't Real. So I think Xylia has some of the answers there.
Yeah, so we have 3 responses. Unfortunately, we didn't have any, ones wishing us, better futures or anything this time. But, so Heather McGill, or McKill, on Instagram, says it's still on her watch list. She says she knows she's useless. You're certainly not useless, but definitely watch the movie. One of Rowan's friends from Toronto, Adrian, says that he enjoyed it and he really liked the aesthetic and he thought that there were some really great shots / scenery. And then finally Colton says he hasn't seen it, but our episode was 100 Crown Heart. I think that might be a bit of a poke at the person who answered the spam thing last time. Because they had the 100 crown heart emojis. So yeah, that's great. Love your humor.
Big shout out, Colton. Maybe this year coming we'll finally do The Lighthouse with you, and so we can be a year late on every Robert Eggers movie.
That's actually kind of a really fun idea. Let's do it.
Every time he puts out a new movie, a year later,
yeah, we'll do the one from the year before, yeah.
I feel like the depths of, winter is just the perfect depressing time to do that movie.
This is very true. A winter with COVID.
Yeah. Yay.
Yay. Well, let's get into the main event. Like I said, this is our final episode. If you're listening to this right when it comes out, it is, it could be the morning or at some point it is Halloween today. Well, it's not Halloween right now. I'm recording this on the 29th, but it will be out on the 31st, so hopefully you're ready to, scare kids. You're putting lots of razor blades in those candies.
Throwing rocks through windows. Oh, wait, was that just me?
I'm really interested in how this year's Halloween turns out. I had asked some people that I know around here with kids, and so we're in the Atlantic bubble, and we have relatively no cases compared to the rest of Canada and the world. And even around here, a lot of the people were saying that their kids are just going to end up being taken straight to their families' homes or their close friends, and that's going to be the extent of trick-or-treating, really. So, sad for the kids, happy for me and all the candy I will be eating.
Also, maybe they should take this opportunity to start showing their kids scary movies, even if it's just stuff like, children's scary movies. Like, come on, people, show them The Witches. God, I mean, I watched Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 8.
Yeah, step it up. I mean, there's DVD copies of things like Martyrs and stuff. Like, show these kids some French New Wave horror.
I feel like they're not going to, but...
That's just my suggestion.
Missed opportunities.
I also want to just apologize to any kid that comes to my house, because I hate to tell you children, but the minute Xylia brought home candy, she opened it and she's been eating it every day.
I bought this box of like 15 candies, and it's like Jolly Rancher Suckers, Jolly Rancher like little sours, Oh Henry bars, Reese's Pieces peanut butter cups, and I was standing at Shoppers and I was like, there's a box of 115 or a box of 70. I was like, maybe I should get a box for the kids in case they come, and the box for myself. And this mom with her kid walked by and she's like, what did she say? She was
something. She's like, yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I like, me too.
She knew what was going on.
Yeah, it was funny.
So yeah, I keep saying we'll get right into it. So our final movie that was chosen by a democratic vote was Saw from
not
2004.
the Electoral College.
That's right. Yeah, and we kind of briefly, I think in one of the other episodes, talked about why we picked this. These movies normally come out on or around Halloween, so this whole franchise is kind of, always looked at as like a Halloween franchise. It reminds me of Halloween time. So, we thought it was appropriate that we do, start with one. And I said last episode, I think this is our first dive into, even if it's a popcorn flick, popcorn torture porn. So let's get into the trailer and the bio. And then we're going to come back with some fun. So let's play that trailer.
Someone there? I can hear you. Who is that? Who's in there?
Technically speaking, he's not really a murderer. He never killed anyone.
Dr. Gordon, your aim in this game is to kill Adam. If you do not, then Diana will die.
He finds ways for his victims to kill themselves.
I'm sick of people who don't appreciate their blessings. I've given you a life purpose.
Looks like our friend Jigsaw likes to book himself front row seats to his own sick games.
He doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through our feet.
Most people are so ungrateful to be alive. Not anymore.
You are a drug addict. Do you think that is why he picked you?
He helped me.
Don't believe Adam's lies.
Alright, so the IMDb bio. Two strangers awaken in a room with no recollection of how they got there, and soon discover their pawns in a deadly game perpetrated by a notorious serial killer. So, before we talk about the movie, we have two things that we need to get on the table, on the docket, and clear out. So number one, Xylia, why don't you tell them what we're doing?
So this is one of these movies where there's a quiz to see what character you are.
Oh yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I think it's like the character results encompass the entire franchise, and I've only seen the first two movies, so I actually have no idea who this person is, but that's okay. We'll read read who we got and kind of the description. So, Mike, why don't you go first?
Okay, this is gonna sound borderline psychotic, but I was very pleased to get my girl, Amanda Young. We love her.
Oh, is she the one that has, like, the weird contraption on her mouth?
Reverse bear trap, yeah.
Yes.
I also got Amanda Young.
Oh my god, you guys got the same answers last time.
We are twins. This is it. I'll read out the description of why we got her. I think
Please
it fits
do.
you are most like Amanda. You tend to be a little lost in life, depressed or realist, perhaps a little misanthropic. Beware hopelessness and try to find meaning and joy in your daily life. Look for a creative outlet, such as poetry, volunteering, hobbies, drawing, or listening to music. Or in her case, helping a psychotic person do insane, brutal traps.
This is very... I don't know if this is true to me, but...
Yeah, that seems like a very,
I do like creative outlets. I have this podcast.
melancholy.
Oh, it's totally me. Like, it makes sense for me, because I'm, the, fucking lost, depressed, hopeless, fucking, spiral of a human being, but...
Yeah, I like to listen to music, I like creative outlets, and I like to help serial killers kill people, so I'd say it's spot on. How about yourself, Xylia?
So, I got Jill Tuck, like I said, no idea who that is.
Yeah, she's in a couple of them. I think it's the third one. She's Jigsaw's, ex-wife, I think it is. And
Sorry, you were frozen.
Jigsaw's ex-wife. She's a doctor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
When they delve deeper into the story, now it's been years since I've seen any of the sequels, but I believe, if my memory serves, that, her character is kind of instrumental in, the backstory when they start giving Jigsaw and, everybody more of a backstory and, kind of, backdating everything, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it says, you are most like Jill. You tend to be determined, tough, a realist, strong, helpful, guiding, and have a good heart. Even though life spits out garbage, you are experienced enough to dodge it and still continue to be your awesome self. Well, thank you, quiz. That's really nice.
I like how you get, a real nice thing, and we get,
you guys are hopeless.
We get, oh, you just murder people and listen to music.
You murder people and then put on the Smiths.
Yeah.
How cool of you. So I think Xylia has one more thing to share with everybody.
Yeah, so doing the Bechdel test again on this movie, and basically if you missed the very brief description of this last time, it's the idea of whether there's two women in a scene together, and if they speak about something other than the men in the movie or not in the movie, and
I have a question.
It's a bonus if they are named. Yes, what?
So it's two women that are in the scene together that speak about something other than the men.
Other than men, yeah.
So does, guns against their heads count?
No. So, this movie failed miserably. I think there are a total of 3 women in this movie. The wife, the daughter, and then the woman that you guys got as your answer.
Amanda.
And the student. That,
the med student that he met in the hotel who just wanted to fuck her doctor professor.
Right. And she had screen time for about 30 seconds. Yeah, I mean, it was a miserable fail, and every single thing revolved around the doctor. And Jigsaw.
The good doctor.
Yeah, so, fail.
Big F. So I guess this is where I will cut in and we will briefly talk about, directors who made the film. So this was directed by James Wan, some would say a very unknown in the horror community.
Every time Rowan said James Wan to me, before or after we were watching it, I kept thinking he was saying James Bond. And I was just like, what does this have to do with James Bond?
So obviously not a horror unknown. James Wan, known for many, many horror movies. So, to list some off, Dead Silence, the entire Insidious franchise, the Conjuring franchise, Furious 7, Aquaman. I mean, I'd say James Wan is probably, one of the biggest directors of our time right now. In terms of, mainstream movies, he's kind of got a hand in it all. So let's talk about who acts in it. It's not a huge cast. I only put down a couple people. So Lee Waynell, who plays Adam, who it should also be noted that he wrote the script with James Wan. They did this in college. So, they're working partners. Like I said, he played Adam. Some stuff that he was in. He was in The Matrix Reloaded, Saw 3, in all the Insidiouses, and he was also in The Bye-Bye Man. And then, if you're wondering who he played in Insidious, he played, the nerdy, ghost hunter guy.
Oh, yeah.
That was him. Then, probably the big star of the show is Carrie Elways. I'm looking at Mike because I was very scared that wasn't how you say his last name.
Rowan's a bit self-conscious that he may mispronounce some names, and me and Mike, the Shade Brigade goes into action. So sorry, Rowan.
Am I correct,
I'm not
Mike?
that sorry. I think it's Elwes, but
whatever.
You've made worse manglings before, so
this is true. So he plays Dr. Gordon, and if you don't recognize him, I just kind of feel bad for you.
I don't recognize him.
Yeah, I'm looking at Xylia's face. She's got no idea.
I don't think.
So, he's most known as the lead from The Princess's Bride.
Oh, yes.
Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Days of Thunder, Glory, Hot Shots, Dracula, Twister, Liar Liar, and he's also in the newest remake of Black Christmas. So another little horror entry in his filmography. Next up we have, also very well known, Danny Glover.
Yes.
He plays Detective Tapp, and you know him from, Lethal Weapon, obviously all those movies. Predator 2.
My favorite.
The best thing in his filmography.
Yeah, exactly.
And if there's anything that's going to compete with that in his filmography, it would be The Royal Tenenbaums, which he has my all-time favorite role.
Earth-shattering, mind-expanding masterpiece.
Such a good film.
Just a life-changing best soundtrack of all time.
Everybody
in it was their best
Halloween,
movie.
And speaking of Halloween, Samantha and Tim had a Halloween party, and they dressed up from Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah.
Samantha was Margot, and her costume was on point.
Really? You just gotta find a nice set of opera gloves and a good fur coat.
Yeah. And her hair was perfect. Yeah, it was great.
So then I wanted to bring up Mike's favorite, Shawnee Smith.
I love her so much.
Who plays Amanda.
Horror queen.
She was in The Blob. And, I think the main ones everyone would know is, Saw 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3D.
All the saws. She ate off this franchise. And then we have playing Mr. John / Jigsaw, the always amazing Tobin Bell. And other than pretty much the whole Saw franchise, he's in the new Creep Show television series on Shudder, and also was in Sophie's Choice. I didn't know that.
Oh, wow. I haven't watched Sophie's Choice in a very long time, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so I was pretty impressed. But that is where I'll end our credits.
Oh, no, I have one more. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike. This is not actor related, so Mike, go ahead.
I just wanted to throw out two of my girls, Monica Potter and Dina Meyer. Monica Potter plays his wife.
Oh, my wife, yeah.
I love her. She was in the Parenthood TV show, which was actually quite good. And Dina Meyer is the other detective, the female detective, and she is famously in the world-renowned Starship Troopers as one of the great characters. Anyway, go ahead.
That was the first thing I said when we turned on the movie. I was like, hey, it's
Dizzy from Starship Troopers.
Yeah, Dizzy from Starship Troopers. Why didn't I put her in my show?
I know! Like, women getting put down by the man, as usual.
I subconsciously knew you wanted to talk about her, so...
You did. You just wanted to fuck me over.
That's right. Xylia, now your thing.
Sorry, I just noticed that we just got another response to the Daniel isn't real thing. a bit late to the game, sorry. But Horrorworth said yes, it is a super fun movie. I just didn't want anybody to feel like they were
There you
being
go,
excluded.
Horrorworth, you made it in the middle of recording. Thank you, thank you for submitting, everyone, really, for responding. It's fun when we get to read your comments.
Yeah, I love it.
So let's get into our first experiences with this film. Is this the first time you're seeing it, or what was your first experience with it and your impressions? Mike, let's start with you.
Well, since I'm an old, I actually saw it in theaters because ever since I started watching horror movies so young and would always make either my dad or my older brother or one of my friends' parents, we'd drag them to bring us to go see movies on Halloween in theaters. So this was one of them that we saw in theaters, and of course we loved it, and it was, I think that was a weird Halloween. I think there was not very much good out, and we didn't even know anything about this really, and we were just like, oh look, Saw, that looks scary, let's go see it, and knew nothing about it, and it was before it had this cult status, so that was really fun, and we had a lot of fun going to see it, and went to see the next couple as well, but after that we kind of fell off because it was just sort of the same thing ad nauseum, and we were like, we can't go do this every year.
Xylia, how about yourself?
So I also saw it in the theater. I think it was literally 3 weeks before my 15th birthday. I can't 100% remember who I went with. I think it was my parents. I guess I'll talk a bit more later on about my reactions, because I think that's really shaped my perception of this movie, was my first viewing of it.
Okay, that's fair. So I can't really remember the first time I saw it. I don't think it was in the theater. I think I saw this when it came out on DVD. But I might have saw it in the theater, but I definitely saw it around that time period that it would have been a big thing. And yeah, kind of like Xylia, I'll talk about later how I felt. So let's get into the main review. As always, we start off with our favorite scene or favorite kill. For once, Xylia wants to go first because she actually has something.
This is the first time that I actually have an answer, so I feel like I have to get it out before anybody says the same thing, and then I am like, oh yeah, me too.
You go.
There are, okay, so I guess I have a couple things.
She's gonna turn around and just be like, I like it when everyone dies.
No. Favorite kill, all the kills are pretty spectacular. I think that's kind of the thing with this movie. That's part of the plot is these really extravagant deaths. But yeah, so I guess I would say all of them, but there are two scenes in particular that really stood out to me when I saw this movie initially in the theater. One was when he saws his foot off, and I was like, what the fuck?
Where we did get possibly the worst acting of all time ever in film.
After that, his acting really went even further downhill, I found.
The scream. It's like, ah!
And then the other favorite scene is at the end when the guy in the middle of the floor, aka Jigsaw, literally just gets up and fucking walks out. I did not see that coming when I first saw that movie. Yeah, I thought that was I really liked that twist, and I think that's definitely a scene that stuck with me, and I think it's something that anybody watching it for the first time, you'll all be like, wow, what the fuck? That guy was alive the entire time. How did he not move? How did he not move that whole time?
Magic,
I guess.
Mike, how about yourself? Favorite scene, favorite kill?
Well, my favorite kill, because some of them are aborted, but my favorite kill that succeeded was the one when the detectives are chasing Jigsaw down, and he trips the tripwire, and then all those sawed-off shotguns blow him to bits.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really
brutal.
jarring, because, like, one sawed-off shotgun is, like, a horrifically violent thing to the flesh of the human body. But to have, like, whatever that was, like, 4 or 5 aimed down, and, like, you know, your head must just, like, explode and everything. And it's just... It was jarring. I don't know why. And I mean, that movie was full of jarring ideas, even if you don't see all of them happening. Like, the theoretical violence of it is so, like, extreme. Other than that, I mean, obviously, I love the reverse bear trap scene.
Yeah.
Because that is also a kill. Like, she doesn't die, but that other person does. And obviously that was a really jarring death, because, of course, it was 2 people that were part of the game, you know, kind of, like, forced to be pitted against one another. Well, I mean, I guess you can't really call it against one another when one of them is, you know, narcoticized on the ground, but it wasn't, you know, it was kind of like pawn against pawn, I guess, is pawn on pawn violence.
And that reverse bear trap, I think if it had been successful, that's like by far would have been the best kill.
Yeah. And I will say right now that I don't know this for sure, but my theory is that they came up with that and then made the movie around it. But I don't want to talk about that yet, because I feel like that would be cutting off Ro. Ro, what was your favorite?
So mine was a 2-way tie. So my favorite scene is where they kill the guy by, you know,
razor wire
gluttony, by eating too much. Oh, wait a second. That didn't happen. Because the entire time the movie started, I'm like, man, I can't wait to see all these kills based on the 7 deadly sins.
What? No.
And then as it started, realized that all of those kills were from the movie 7. I haven't seen this movie in like a long time, and I was just like, oh shit, man, I was really looking forward to that.
So when you picked this movie, because Rowan was the one that put it forward, did you think it was that movie?
No, I mean, when I think of the movie, I think about sawing off your foot or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I just thought those were like his like the search for him. My favorite also, like Mike, is probably that whole bear trap. I mean, I think for most people that was kind of like the iconic trap out of this whole thing.
For the first one.
I'm saying like for the whole movie.
Yeah.
And I think that one specifically, and not so much the razor wire one, kind of informed the rest of the franchise, because the rest of the franchise like uses that like grungy rusty metal the bear trap used. Like they all kind of have that look after this movie. Mm-hmm. That was kind of my favorite scene and my favorite kill. I mean, obviously, we don't care about spoiler alert stuff. I mean, definitely when you first see this, like, everyone's favorite scene is just the end. And, you know, this is like a twist ending perfectly done, where you're just like, holy shit, like...
Because you think it's the Zepp guy orchestrating the whole thing.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit, too, I'm sure, some more. But those are my favorite scenes, favorite kill.
Can I just say what my favorite torture scene in the second one is?
No.
We're gonna have the same one, girl, I just know it.
Yeah. No, but, I mean, if we review it, I'll just say it again. And it might be a long time in the future. But definitely, maybe the best...
I picked it next.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I didn't really.
Maybe the best torture thing in the entire 2 movies that I've seen is the used needle pig.
Yeah, that was 100%
horrific.
It's disgusting.
Horrific.
And of course, it involves Shawnee Smith, Queen.
As we know, Mike Hart's Shawnee Smith.
Also, her band from like the early 2000s called $5 Ho.
That is actually a pretty tough name.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the main things why I put this forward for us to review and talk about is I think it's an interesting talk about, we kind of said it in the intro to this film, is that this is, I feel, kind of the real first public mainstream event of, you know, what we dub torture porn now. This kind of made that, you know, popular, because we didn't really see horror movies before this on this kind of level, you know, involve this kind of like torture and what the rest of the series became. So I'm just like interested in like what you guys think about, not only about it being kind of the first, you know, bringing it to the mainstream, but the effect it's had, its lasting effect, where we saw, especially, you know, I give it a good 5 to 8 year run where everybody was like hitting the torture porn scene and had to do something that was like brutal and graphic, like Saw, and like shocking. I just wanted your guys' thoughts on it.
I think that it definitely was so popular, ended up being so popular that it became like really oversaturated with stuff like that. And a lot of the movies, I always think of Hostel because there was so much hype around Hostel, and it really wasn't, like, from what I recall, it really wasn't that as intense as everybody says it was supposed to be or whatever. So I think it just kind of got to be, it's like trends in anything, but in horror movies as well. Like, I think it just was, the whole industry was like oversaturated with stuff like that.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, in terms of sort of like it setting up at least the kind of like North American market of torture porn, I find it interesting because unlike a lot of some of the other North American entries in that kind of like wave, it now, you know, we can argue whether it was successful or not, tries to like justify its own extremity with this like pseudo, like really paper thin pseudo philosophical like framework.
Yeah,
which is interesting because a lot of the other movies didn't even bother with that. It was just like, but then you know, we think, like you mentioned, the like French New Wave of horror, that was sort of, I want to say in the timeline in my head, it was probably already underway.
Yeah, I
that
think
was a
so.
much more aestheticized, and it kind of inherently had things to say about, you know, a lot of different topics, but didn't do it in such a like heavy-handed sledgehammer way as this did. Like, it literally had to, like, explicate to you, here's my manifesto, right? It was just, you know what I mean? Like, it was just so, like, just presented to you on a plate, whereas, like, a lot of the European movies that were also very extreme were way more aestheticized, and it just was part, like, the themes and stuff accompanied, that, like, form and function sort of were intertwined, whereas in this it was like, here's a script that we hammered out and threw this framework onto really quickly to justify these extreme scenes. And I feel like a lot of the other American shit didn't bother with that as much, which I find interesting.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, to me, the probably, you know, and it doesn't reflect, I don't think, how I necessarily feel about especially the first movie in this franchise, but it feels to me like, as we talk about the French New Wave, and as someone like I've talked about before, like, you know, that's kind of, I'm really into like shock horror. I love French New Wave stuff. I like stuff that makes your stomach hurt, but like also makes you think, and, you know, is telling a bigger narrative. And I think about this time period, and I always associate like this, and we started to get like the American remakes for like I Spit on Your Grave, and like everyone, Hostel, like we're all jumping into this torture porn game.
Oh, Last House on the Left remake, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like this rape revenge and just shocking, but like these remakes, even though Saw is not a remake, I just feel like this is a, you know, and this is gonna sound like super hipster, but it's just like, this is an example of just like such sterile, like,
well, it's like Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood versions of, you know, like you said, Mike, I think this is really influenced by like French New Wave and that kind of stuff. And it saddens me because, I mean, most people that this is marketing to aren't gonna go watch something like Martyrs, or like, I'm thinking about like Intruders. That's like another great one.
Yeah, Inside.
Yeah, like Inside. And although I don't think the general market could handle those films, because those films are like highly disturbing, I think they're more intellectually fulfilling.
Would you consider like Ichi the Killer a torture porn movie. I've only seen it once, and it was when we first met, and I was like, woo, this is like...
I don't know, I wouldn't
torturous.
call it torture porn, but I think it's like shock. It's like a shock value thing, which it's is going for, like...
Yeah.
I think are kind of, they're all in the same breed there. And it's just, but even stuff like Ichi, like I think Ichi does have more deeper philosophical things going on.
I think we might have spoken about, I can't remember if we've spoken about this like in life or on this podcast, but I think that's a general thing with movies from other places and compared to movies from North America. I think it was on this podcast.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you know, I think most listeners would know, but I mean, it's a pretty well-known fact that, you know, North American markets usually get a pretty sterile product, even when it just comes to, like, versions of movies.
Yeah, that's what
they just aren't, it's not look that they can handle certain stuff, and certain stuff isn't culturally as acceptable.
Well, and I think, like, in North America, obviously... people put out movies, like studios put out movies for profit, money, so they're gonna put out what they think's gonna make the most money, not necessarily like what's the best or most like intelligent product.
Well, it's very much like even indie movies, I think, are a lot of times like done with committee, It's like anything that's planned out by a studio is like, let's have a think tank about this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like
and
I
then
said,
we'll hire somebody to execute it, like,
Yeah, and like you said, it was just something I wanted to bring up and maybe have the listeners think about, and me and Mike, we named off like some great, French New Wave horror. I always hope things like this pique people's interest to, as crazy as it sounds to, like your parents or something, I don't know, like push yourself into like maybe some more intellectually fulfilling shock horror, push those boundaries of comfortability, because there is a lot of gems out there that, deserve some screen time rather than, something as, a little more, and when I say more mainstream, I think I'm talking about like the series as a whole, because I mean, obviously this was an independent film, like these guys made this film in, like, they had just graduated. The reason it's pretty much in one room is because they didn't have the budget for anywhere else. They said, we need to make a story in one room because that's what we can afford.
And that room was disgusting.
Absolutely filthy.
I, got scabies just looking at it.
They did a great job on the whole set design. Other than, I questioned to Xylia, when Dr. Gordon goes to get in his car, like where he gets kidnapped.
Oh, that weird garage?
It's like a barn or something.
Yeah.
Like you can see, like it's got like a barn roof. But it's quite obviously supposed to be
like a hospital
the hotel parking lot.
Oh yes, because it's after he meets the student.
Yeah. And I was just like, man, that sucks that this looks really bad.
No, it was moody and atmospheric, but it just didn't look right.
I guess moody and atmospheric to me is one way to put it. One thing I will bring up, I really didn't like the color palette to this.
No.
I don't, rewatching it, I didn't remember it being so dreary, and it's not that I have an issue with movies looking dreary, but I just didn't think it looked good. It
was devoid of an aesthetic.
Yeah,
it's not that the color palette was dreary, it's that there was no color palette, and that's the problem to me.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, I think the biggest issue is that any color they had was obviously only blue, and they put it all over Carrie Elway's face because he was blue for half of the movie. He looked like
Is this the doctor?
The doctor.
Yeah, after he cut off his leg, he's like white, and he's like, ooh.
But it's
like clown makeup. Yeah.
It's like whitish blue, terrible makeup. And I commented to Mike when we were talking about this yesterday, like, it looks like he was a zombie from the original Dawn of the Dead, which we all know is like a comedic thing, because the zombies looked blue, like they were a totally different color than they were supposed to be. And it totally took me out of the film, because I was like, he looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
As I mentioned a little earlier, like, I thought his acting was a little too over the top. I just felt like they were going for a more serious tone with everyone else, and he was almost like a little too like slapsticky for me. Like, he just didn't really bring what I thought he would bring to it. But
Did I hear that they didn't rehearse it and it was essentially like jump in and shoot it? And I always assumed that's why the acting was really uneven, because in some scenes he's fine, but like then when it gets to by the end, you know, he's just, his original like British accent keeps coming out when he's when he's very emotional and stuff, and I was like, dude, well, like, your character is just breaking off completely.
Well, and I had major problems with the second time. Like, he tries to get the phone the second time, and that's where he like starts freaking out and decides he's gonna cut off his foot, because he yelled at the Adam guy towards the beginning about like, oh, use your shirt, use your belt. He didn't do any of those things. No. And the phone wasn't like that far away from him. He could have just like used his shirt and got the phone, but he couldn't reach it, and then he just started like freaking out and cut off his foot.
Also, like, think of the infection that he would have from cutting off his foot in such a room.
Girl, like, literally, I was not terrified the first time I watched this by the kills or the stalking or the, like, philosophy of it. All I could do was look at all this metal, and, like, all I was thinking of was infection and diseases and what, like literally almost every scene I was like, like, infection everywhere.
A massive staph infection, the worst form of slow torture.
Saw 18. Just the infections that they all got after the movie was over.
Saw the infection.
That's terrible. I don't know. There was a lot of things about the movie that I think were fonder in my memory. It was fonder as a nostalgic memory than what, you know, as...
But that's the whole thing with nostalgia.
Yeah, like, I watched it now, and I was like, a lot of the exposition, I, like, didn't remember there being that much. And in this film, like, they're jumping timeline, like... They're going back in time, then bringing you to the room, and all that kind of stuff. And I found this watch, like, I just didn't really care. I was just like, I want to be in the room with these guys. It would probably be far more terrifying if I spent an hour and 40 minutes with these guys not knowing anything. But I end up knowing every detail, essentially. Like, they didn't do a good job of, like, the Zeph guy, like... You knew the minute that Zeph guy opened his mouth in the hospital scene, I'm like, that guy's a bad guy. Like, obviously.
He's not a bad guy, though. He's just part of the game.
But you knew he was gonna be, like, you knew it. You were just like, oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is my question. If you got set up by Jigsaw, you guys, would you carry out the mission and kill somebody to save your own life?
That is a good question. And I cannot answer it because I am not in that position.
I feel like that's you gotta be in it to, who am I killing?
I mean, I could make some, you know, fucking grand, like, oh, this is gonna make me look really good or whatever, but, like, I don't know, man. Like, I could say one thing and then you throw someone in that situation and it's like, fucking shit is real. Like, I don't know.
Self-preservation.
And you know, like, the human mind and body does absolutely unimaginable things under stress and shock, so God only knows. I want to say, like, I would do, you know, whatever the most noble thing is, but, you know, human beings are fallible, so that's all
I feel like my problem is the time limit things. Throughout the series, these guys never have very much time, and I'm like, I don't think I could do all this stuff in that amount of time.
Definitely couldn't.
Also, my pain tolerance is terrible.
What function does the time limit serve other than to... I know that its whole purpose is to ratchet up the tension for the viewer, but, like, it doesn't fit in with the kind of, like, the philosophical, like, purpose.
Yes.
Like, what does 30 seconds seconds mean? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, especially where the whole purpose, like the philosophical background is that you are taught a lesson and then you like appreciate your life. But yeah, if you're given this really unrealistic time, that seems like it kind of cancels that lesson out.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have a question too that I asked Rowan when I was when we were watching it. Was the guy in the room with all the numbers on the wall and he's like covered in something that's flammable and he has the candle?
Yeah, like the flammable gel or whatever.
Yeah.
Why the fuck did he carry that candle around? I'm like, I can't
see the numbers.
I can't see in the dark, and I could see those numbers.
Well, I think it was a lighting thing.
Yeah, that was the only time that the movie had any kind of color palette, was the god-awful ugly lighting in those scenes to make it look interesting.
And they had a lot of scenes where it was supposed to be dark, but they made it super light so the viewer could see everything.
What if he just waited till the day? I don't think he had a time limit.
Who knows?
No,
well, yeah,
I could be wrong,
it's an
but didn't he have
room.
until the candle went out? Wasn't that the whole point?
No, basically.
Because when the candle went out, it would catch the stuff on fire.
No, I don't think.
I don't know. No, wait, because he could just...
He was in like a brick basement, though, with no windows.
Also, why do you need to read the millions of numbers on the wall? Just fucking use your fingers and try different combinations. They just had, like, 1,000 combinations on the wall. Just use your brain instead.
It wasn't like... I don't think it was fully thought out, which... is kind of, and I keep harping. I feel like I'm really harping on this movie. The philosophy. Let's talk about the philosophy of it.
Wait, first, can I say this? Because it bounces off of what you just said.
Certainly.
I will say, and I sort of alluded to it earlier, that I think the reason why all the other, like, trap/kill scenes just seem sort of frenetic and secondary and ill thought out is because I'm telling you right now, I don't know this for sure, but when I watched it the first time, and definitely when I rewatched it the few times since, I was like, the reverse bear trap scene was definitely the like one kind of thing that they had that they built everything else around. Yeah. And I feel like that and the scene in the bathroom, I feel like that was their two pillars of this movie, because the bathroom scene is so like fucking theater school. Like,
what's the scene in the bathroom?
Like he's talking about, like,
the whole plot where they're chained in the bathroom.
He's talking about that room with the tub
the
and
room.
the toilet.
Yeah. I never even considered that's a bathroom, despite the fact there's a toilet and a tub. But
there's toilet and urinals and a bath.
Oh, there's urinals?
There's urinals, yeah. Trust me, I like my eyes went all over that room because I was completely disgusted by it, and it made every like hair on my body stand on end.
And that's why and I'm the opposite, because I was like, oh, I don't want to look at this. But yeah, it makes sense that it's a bathroom.
And also, funny that, like, I know more details from that room because in one of my favorite video games, Dead by Daylight, there is a map, because obviously the Saw chapter came out, and there is a map based on that building.
Oh, yeah?
The one room that's really dangerous to go into is that bathroom, because there's no way out of it except one door, yeah. So I've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years, like, looking around the video game recreation of that room. But yeah, like, to me, those two scenes were the height of the movie, and like just sort of the only ones that didn't seem really like kind of banged out and illogical.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm not trying to slag on the movie as a whole, but like, let's face it, like, those are the linchpins of the whole movie, and everything else is just sort of secondary. And
Definitely.
You could tell that was like their character development scene, theater school, two guys chained in a bathroom together, time is ticking, and then that bear trap scene, which is just horrific, and it's very much like tense. It seems like, a Hitchcock, like, show someone the bomb's gonna go off 5 minutes from now, right? So
yeah, exactly.
And I think that's why, like, when we're ripping the other scenes to shreds, it makes sense, because I feel like it was just filler to prop up the stuff in the bathroom and then the bear trap scene.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
And I was gonna say, and I think the other directors that directed the other films in the series, like, I think that's what kind of got picked up, right? Like, as these movies go on, even though we get more and more intricate backstories, it's always like 3 or 4 main traps. We know this is what people want, what they're paying attention to. The story's always, like, second to the kills. Like, I know myself, like, you know, when I've looked at some of the later Saw films, like, if they're on Netflix or something, like, I just skip through them. I'm like, oh, here's a trap, press play.
Yeah.
And, like, I just want to see the traps and how they work. I don't care about, I mean, the story's essentially always the same, except you don't know who's helping them.
That's
exactly.
That's what I really like about the movies, is, like, I really like the creation of the traps, I guess you would say. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank on the words. But the invention and how they work, the mechanics of it, and I love the, like, problem-solving aspect.
Yeah, it's very much like a Rube Goldberg machine, like, one thing triggers another, and...
Yeah.
And like I started to say earlier, a big issue I had with this watch of it, and knowing where this franchise go, is, like, the philosophy of it, you know, like, you can, you know, you do these horrific things, and you're gonna come out changed, and this is Jigsaw's, you know, way, and blah, blah, blah. But even in this first one, the logic is completely flawed, because Jigsaw still kills people cold-bloodedly.
He doesn't actually technically kill them. It's kind of like a Charles Manson deal.
Well, but I mean, he also slit Danny Glover's throat.
Oh,
like,
yeah, right.
Detective Tapp,
But he didn't die.
He didn't die, but he didn't know that. And it's no different than, like, his partner getting shot in the head. Like, there's no trap there that he could win.
Yeah.
Like, it's set up to kill someone.
Yeah, it's just to allow him to escape, essentially.
Yeah. And, of course, the later, like, you know, not that they knew this was going to be a franchise when they did this one, but since there is a franchise now informing this one, he's an anti-hero. That's kind of the appeal of these now. He's this anti-hero where, you know, it's a live or die. He's not necessarily a murderer because he's not doing it. But in reality, in this original one, I mean, he is a murderer. He's willing to kill anyone that gets in his way of punishing these people. And these people, unlike the other films, aren't necessarily just, you know, like, there was, like, Amanda, who's, like, you know, the drug addict, and didn't really have a connection to him. But everyone else in this film he's punishing has, like, some sort of connection to him. Like, Dr. Gordon, Zeph, all these people are, like, it's a personal vendetta against these people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like a web around him, yeah.
What about the Adam guy?
Well, the Adam guy
was taking pictures.
For the detective.
Right. So, I guess you know, the guy that's in the chair in his, like, loft with, like, the drills that are coming towards his head.
Yeah.
I guess he was gonna kill him. And what's the point of that? And how is he gonna escape? He's like,
I didn't really, like, I don't think they ever really explained, like,
but
who that guy was.
Is that one that they, like, was that, like, Death Interrupted? Was that something that they would have found a tape for later on?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, is that something that maybe was, like, he was trying to teach somebody else not related to this web of people, and then it's like, oh shit, the police showed up.
Yeah, I mean, very possibly. I mean, obviously, like I said, a big thing about a lot of I feel the complaints about this film that kind of then wipe those complaints away is, I mean, this is like a very, like, it's a very pretty much independent film. I don't think it was meant to inform a franchise. These guys had a concept. These guys have admitted the concept was The Room.
Yeah.
And that was the concept. And they were just built around that.
Yeah, so basically...
Like, it's such a, like, cliche, like, we just got out of theater school, like, setup, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a good setup, don't get me wrong, but, like, it's very much, like, kind of classical.
They hit the jackpot.
And quite possibly one of the biggest twists in film since April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
For epic twists. Yeah, that's all my complaints. Do we have any positive things to say about the film?
I said positive things.
Is there any more positive things to say about the film?
Okay, listen, I want to say this. This is sort of, again, I love Shani. She's not in this movie for very long, and I think that they actually, I don't know if it was planned or not. I'm going to say it probably wasn't, but I think that, you know, her 5 minutes in this movie was kind of one of the highlights of it, even if a lot of the highlight of that was that ingenious trap.
Yeah.
But it brings up this other issue that I have with it, which is an issue that is related to her scene, but as well as some of the other ones. Especially the people that he chooses for his traps and stuff. There's this, like, stigma in it of, like, mental illness and, like, drug addiction and stuff that, like, when I first saw it, because I was much younger, I didn't really pick up on. But now, as somebody in 2020 who, you know, is, I like to think, a lot more informed and has thought more about the world and the people in it, it's sort of awful and borderline offensive, because it's got these, like, really kind of dangerous, stereotypical ideas of, like, mental illness and addiction and people being on social assistance that now it's sort of, that was almost the most scary part of this movie, other than Carrie Elwes' bad acting.
No, that's totally true. It's like, oh, you have an addiction, therefore you don't appreciate life. I mean...
Yeah, that's why you're addicted to drugs.
That's not how addiction works.
If you just show somebody that their life could be worse,
yeah.
Yeah, oh my god, that's just like that. Like, why don't we just legalize jigsaw reverse bear traps?
Right.
In every, like... country in the world.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like,
problem solved.
You tried to commit suicide. Exactly. You tried to commit suicide because you don't value your life. So now, here you go.
Right.
I'm gonna kill you. Like,
it definitely makes, like, some moral judgments.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's, and they're questionable moral judgments.
Yeah.
At that. It does not... And I think that would have been, if they had remade this movie now, like, that they might do a more nuanced, I would hope. It would be cool if somebody did a more nuanced version of it that actually, like, looked at how this is, you know, it's fine for him to set that out as, like, you know, especially since he's, like, a villain, or at least an anti-hero, depending on how you're looking at it, depending on who you are.
Get some, like, oil executives tied up there or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it essentially, like, most of the people, except, you know, when you get the doctor in there, like, a lot of them are the people that get involved with it are, like, people with problems and, like, marginalized people, and it's, like, really irked me.
Yeah, no, it's a great point.
Like, he has this philosophy and, you know, wants people to appreciate their life and stuff, but it's like, dude, like, look at who you're targeting. Like I said, get some oil executives there. Like, you got the doctor, okay, that was fine, but that was only because he happened to be in your, like, direct, like, line of sight. Like, he was right in your crosshairs, and it's because you're sick.
And that's the thing, he's, like, so bitter, you know? To be bitter enough about being sick that you're gonna, like, torture other people to make them, quote-unquote, appreciate their lives, like...
Yeah.
That's pretty self-centered.
It is. It's absolutely self-centered, and it's like projecting your shit onto other people.
Yeah.
Except the cost is their lives.
Exactly.
And you know what? He lived longer than any of them.
Yeah, this is true.
Know, despite being sick. Like, I can't remember. It was like the third movie that he died in or something. Like, I don't even remember.
I can't even remember. And I was gonna say,
I think I maybe got to the fourth, but like,
I feel like, and they probably, who knows, I'm sure they brought him back at some point or all that kind of bull. And I was looking at my notes and stuff, and I think I figured out the reason I've been really harping on this, and I think it's because it's making me feel so damn old. Because this is only 4 years away from being 20 years old.
Yeah.
It came out,
2004.
It's almost 2021, so it's 3 years
Yeah.
ago.
So I think maybe I just have a grudge against this movie for being like, god damn.
This came out like a year and a half after we started dating.
Like, 20-year-old films are like, I'm like, those are the kind of films that my grandparents should be watching.
Oh my god.
Like, 20 years old, that's an old film.
Yeah.
And now I'm talking about Saw as this, 20... We're coming up on
a classic
20-year anniversary. It's like retro now. Like, this is, whoa, time, where's it going? and they're still making these damn movies. I think a big thing too, we kind of alluded to it a couple times so far, and I don't know why you would listen to this if you haven't seen it, but, you know, I think this was like the twist ending of twist endings for films. Like, that was really the allure, I think, of this.
It was like a Sixth Sense kind of ending.
Yeah, like, as we said before, finding out that, you know, John is on the floor and he's kind of been there the whole time with, like, prosthetics on. Although if I was Adam, I'd feel like a little bitch because he, like, puked his guts out at this dead body. It's not even a real dead body. Dead. It's, like, fake. Like, what?
Yeah, he, like, peels the stuff off when he
it's just, like, prosthetics. But, yeah, like, this twist was... I remember seeing this twist, and you're like, holy shit, that is crazy.
Yeah, it was intense.
Like... It was very intense. I remember seeing it for the first time, and I think that's why it made everyone fall in love just with the whole series. Because obviously the series kind of adopted that, where it was always a twist ending at the end of all of them.
Stuff like that is a catch-22, though, because the first time you watch it, you're like, whoa, that was
But then you expect it.
Yeah, and then the second time but then anytime after you watch it for the first time, because the movie hinges so much on that twist, I mean, then it kind of loses that magic when you know the twist.
Then, you know, what we're doing now, then you're kind of looking... The twist ending hides, like, all the loose threads, and, you know, now that allure is gone where you can pick at them and unravel, like, you know, what's... Clearly, there's a lot of... you know, imperfections in this, you know, web of a film.
This would be fun to actually, Heather McGill, that had the comment about Daniel isn't real. She put on her Instagram story that she was watching Saw for the first time because of our review, and as well as her partner has kind of been like bugging her to watch it. And yeah, so this is her first time. This is a movie that I would like actually enjoy showing someone for the first time because of these like surprises.
For sure.
Just to see the reaction, it would be awesome to see that. Do we want to get into is it scary? What do you think, Mike?
When I first saw it, you know, I was much younger, and it literally was going into a blind. I had no idea. Bunch of us went to the movie theaters and was like, it's Halloween. Like, literally, I think it was actually on Halloween. And it's like, oh, look, here's a scary movie. Let's go see it. And, you know, obviously there were some parts of it that were, you know, very graphic and intense. And I think that the philosophy that they set up tries to, like, terrify you into, like, looking at your life in a different way. But I don't think that it's that effective. But, you know, this scares, especially if you've never seen it before and don't know anything about it, like, some of those trap scenes are super frightening.
Yeah.
But I think the whole movie itself, there's not much at stake in general. So it kind of loses that scariness.
Yeah.
It's scary, like I said, when I look at it, and I know this is... I'm not joking when I say this. Like, I was terrified rewatching it for this episode, looking at the disgusting rooms and the disgusting bathroom and, like, thinking of all the infections, and truly that terrified me. But that speaks more to my neuroses of being, like, a germaphobe, and anytime I watch a horror movie, thinking about, like, whoever survived, like, the months that they'd have to spend at the hospital and probably, like, losing limbs and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not really, in general, no, it's not really scary, but there's certainly elements of it that actually do terrify me.
How about you, Xylia?
I'm exactly like Mike. In general, I would say it's not scary, but some of the traps are really scary, and that bathroom is horrendously scary.
That bathroom.
It's
giving everybody nightmares.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's not scary. Like I said, I think maybe for like a general audience that doesn't watch horror, it was effective.
Maybe for a general audience that doesn't watch a Serbian film multiple times, it would be effective.
Yeah, you guys are so basic.
Yeah, basic.
No, but you know, I think definitely some of the traps are pretty, like, scary. They're pretty cool. I mean, and also the note, like, Billy's creepy, who's the doll. Like, the name of the doll is Billy.
But what's so funny about that is that it's
I hate that.
Clearly just meant to be, like, something that they could use as, like, an advertising thing, or, like, a little, like, iconic oh look, it's the doll from Saw, because it serves no function in the movie.
No.
It pops up like twice randomly, and that's it. Like,
they don't really utilize him till like the rest of the films, like the doll. Interesting fact about that is like the doll actually isn't like a doll they bought and re-imaged or anything like that. James Wan and Lee Winnall like actually just made it from scratch out of their head. They envisioned that doll in the film and they created it. So I thought that was pretty cool. Because, you know, especially where it was a lower budget, like you'd expect like they would just go buy a doll and then try to make it creepy looking. But they had a vision for Billy. So, I mean, definitely, you know, back to the is it scary? I don't think so at all. Yeah, I don't think it is. I think you could find something scarier in this realm. I mean, only a year after this, Hostel came out. And I honestly think Hostel was more effective at this kind of horror and being scary than Saw was, other than that twist turn. So, yeah, I don't know. Are you guys comfortable in going right into our rating of this?
Yep.
Okay, Xylia, you go first.
So, for me personally, I would say it's an okay. But for me, back when I saw it the first time, and for anybody else that is seeing it for the first time, I think I'm bordering on a yay. Only because of the traps and only because of the twist and the guy fucking sawing his foot off.
So my question is, what is it? Because you wouldn't let Mike have an okay and a yay at Daniel Isn't Real.
I know. It's, I guess for like the significance, I guess I would say a yay.
So Xylia is locking down a yay. We'll switch it up. I'll go next. I usually go last. So I'm giving it an okay. We talked about, you know, that because of the twist ending, this film doesn't really have a lot of replay value. You know what's gonna happen, so the twist isn't, you know, that surprising. Even if you don't remember the intricacies of the plot, you know that guy's gonna get up at the end, and that's where the real shock value of this is. And unfortunately, when you go for those shock endings, they don't have that replay value. So I think, to me, that knocks it down to an okay, because I think you'll have a good time watching it if you've never seen it. And, you know, I do think it's almost an important film to see in the pantheon of horror movies, because it's spawned such a huge, profitable franchise, and, you know, most people know these films, but I think as an overall film, it just has a lot of issues. There's a lot of plot holes that with any further viewing than a casual viewing or a first-time viewing, like, it's gonna get picked apart, and I know for me, it just really bugged me. So Mike, what would you give it?
I'm gonna give it an okay. I appreciate its, like, cultural significance in the, like, 2000s, especially, like, independent, like, horror films, and, you know, especially ones that, like, ended up, you know, making waves and dollars.
Yeah.
But especially rewatching it, I found that aside from the, like, say, 4 hinge scenes, the rest of the movie and all the other characters were absolutely dreadful. And I never realized how bad it was. Just such filler that I found it hard to sit through knowing everything that was going to happen. I was like, because none of the stuff aside from, you know, the handful of pivotal scenes was very captivating at all or interesting or had any impact. You know, even like the Doctor's family, it's like, even though it's Monica Potter, who I love, her character was written so awfully and poorly, and like, it just, none of it had any gravity. So it was really just the, like, cool scenes.
Yeah.
And actually, I will say, I don't like it as much as I love Part 2. I think Part 2 is superior because they knew what the formula was then, and they knew what everybody loved and was talking about, which was, like, the philosophical, like, web of it, and then the traps. and they expanded the aesthetic a bit, and of course gave Shani a bigger role. The acting was slightly better, and I just found everything was a bit more polished and fleshed out. And I know that this was an independent movie that was done with no budget, and they had like 3 days to shoot everything, but that doesn't mean that.
Did they really have 3 days?
No, it was a very, very short amount of time from what I understand, but like they had like no shooting schedule at all.
Yeah.
And I just think that everything was just filler aside from those few scenes, and it wasn't enough to really like carry it. Like, I don't want to watch it again and again. I might just like go on YouTube and like watch the few scenes that I want to watch, you know what I mean? Whereas number 2, now I could say this because I'm probably going to sit down and watch it this weekend. I feel like I could watch that one again and sort of enjoy the movie as a whole, even knowing the twist.
Yeah, I
think in that case it's an okay.
Interestingly, as everybody knows, I've been posting horror movies that we watch each day on Instagram, and I had posted that we had watched Saw the other day, and that was like, people were probably more excited about that than like any other movie we've ever talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a polarizing film in terms of like people that love it and people that maybe like us, not necessarily, well, other than Xylia.
I mean, I don't love it, but I like
very interestingly, I think this is possibly the first movie that Xylia has the highest rating, and we have
I said for me personally now, it's an okay. And then you forced me to choose.
Felt the pressure. She pressure cooker, couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
Alright, so 2 okays and a yay. I think that's fair for this. And I just want to say I agree with Mike. Like, I haven't watched the second one in probably 10 years.
More than that.
But I have fonder memories of the second one, I think, than I do of this.
Is Donnie Wahlberg in the second one?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, okay.
So with that, it's time to get into the budget game. If you're new to the podcast, basically what it is I have the costs, and I have what the film made. I pull these numbers usually from Wikipedia or Box Office Mojo. And Xylia and Mike, they fight in a battle to the death to see who can get closest to the amounts. So let's start with the cost of the film. What you think it costs to make. Mike, we'll start with you.
Oh my god, like $400,000.
So Mike's coming in
give or take some change.
Give or take some change, $400,000. Xylia, what do you think?
Well, you said this is an independent film. They're right out of school. It only took 3 or around their days to film. $500,000.
Oh, she's doing the $1.
She's $400,001, Bob. That's what she's doing.
So Xylia is the closest.
Woo!
It was $1.2 million.
Where the hell did these people get $1.2 million
to film this?
Tell me.
I mean, I would imagine that that's the producer's job, is to find people with money.
Do you think like a producer would find me money to buy a house for $1.2 million?
Maybe. You'll have to find out. Someday.
Yeah, but what are you gonna do for it?
Well,
is the question.
Who knows?
It's too hot for the podcast.
You guys heard about Ronald McDonald, right?
Terrible. So, next is what did it make? Xylia, you can start this. What do you think this movie made?
I think it made $100 million.
So you're coming in at $100 million. Woo-wee. Mike, what do you think this made?
I don't know, like 75 million maybe?
75 million seems like a possibly more reasonable amount. So the winner's gonna be Xylia.
Woo! How much did it make?
It made $103.9 million. This was a fucking smash.
Yeah, this was like a blockbuster.
This was massive. Like, it made its budget back over 100 times.
103 times.
Like,
almost.
Crazy amount. And obviously, this is considered one, if not the most profitable horror franchise of all time. I mean, they said after 3D they were done making the films. They came back the next year, made the Jigsaw one, and now they're making the Spiral one. Like,
what's Spiral?
Spiral is it's a Saw film, but it's directed by Chris Rock, and it has Chris Rock in it, and it's kind of...
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be really interesting.
It's more, I think, on the, like, detectives end of the lens.
Interesting.
I love the title. I love the word Spiral. And not just because I go through them frequently during the year.
But yeah, so it was a smash. Like, this is... If you are a kid out of college making a film, this is the film you would have wanted to make. Because these guys are set. And I mean, look, James Wan, very smartly, James Wan did not take any money to make this. He took his entire cut off the back end of the film.
Yeah, that's...
Very smart move, because he made a shit ton of money.
James Wan.
Yeah, that's right. He is basically the James Bond of directing, I guess. He's that good. And I mean, this guy doesn't need any more money. He's got Saw, Conjuring universe, like, Jesus, like I said, he made Aquaman. Like, this guy's swimming in money.
I wonder how much he's worth.
Probably, like, quite a bit. Xylia's gonna look up on the phone.
I'm gonna Google it.
While I do some shameless promotion work. If you're listening to this, and it is the 31st, go to Spotify, listen to the It Slays podcast, horrific playlist, where we have so much good music from horror films, not just the scores, but just songs. You know, Touch Me from Freddy 2, Freddy's Revenge. Come on now, people. Also, add us on all our social media. It Slays Podcast. You know, come talk to us. We'll write you back. We're always around. We like to interact with you. If you're interested, go to Redbubble, look up It Slays Podcasts, and get some merch. We have tons of merch there. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/itslayspodcast. Give that a look. See if you want to sponsor the show, maybe. Get some cool free things like t-shirts. And lastly, give us a rating and a text review on iTunes, and we will talk about it or read it on the podcast. We want to hear what you have to say. Now, before we talk about the next movie, we gotta let Xylia get in what the net worth is here.
So it says as of 2020, he's worth $70 million. That's his net worth.
That's not too shabby. Not too shabby for a...
That's pretty alright.
Kid that made a little movie out of film school.
I'm worth more, but you know, whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. $70.
$70 is more like it. This coming next 3 picks is a little different. You know, some may say a little, you know, hokey, a little marketing thing. But you know, we're cheesy. We like to spruce things up. So Xylia is gonna talk about what we are doing.
So when I was thinking about this, I wasn't thinking about marketing. I was just thinking about something fun to kind of switch things up for us in terms of picking movies. So I came up with the idea that we would pick movies for each other. So in that way, so basically Rowan is going to be picking a movie that he thinks I would pick. Mike's going to be picking a movie that he thinks Rowan will pick. And I will be picking a movie that I think Mike will pick.
And if you listen to the podcast, you know, we've said we kind of have our archetypes, and I think we all pretty much stuck to that. We know Xylia is a hipster. If you guys could see the sweater she has on,
my God.
She is a hipster.
It's spectacular.
I got it from my grandmother.
So
oh
you
my
guys
God,
already
that's such a
know.
hipster thing to say.
You already know it's spectacular.
It's vintage. It was my grandma's. It's vintage.
Make sure you comment on this episode and demand Xylia post a picture of the sweater. And
I get a lot of comments on it at work.
And we can let you see it. But we know she's a little artsy, so obviously, you know, I tried to go for kind of the artsy hipster vibe. Mike, we always say, is just, he's trash. He's a piece of trash.
No, he's like a cheesy 80s horror guy for sure.
He definitely is. And then me, I'm lame. I'm the person that like pays to see all these Saw movies, and I don't even overly like them, but god damn it, I love a good franchise. I love a good just popcorn flick that's meant for, you know, a younger teen audience, really. So this next movie, it was me picking for Xylia. So I went with the film House. Not to be mixed up with the 80s horror film House. We are doing the wonderful, I believe it's Japanese.
It is Japanese, yeah.
Horror film from the 70s, I think. Yep. House. So that will be coming out in 2 weeks.
Definitely going to pass the Bechdel test because I don't think there's one man in it.
Well, there's a couple men in it.
Whatever, I forgot about them. It's mostly women.
The question I have about that is feminism. Has it gone too far? It's an inside joke, people. I don't believe that. So don't leave hate comments in my inboxes. Send all hate comments to Mike. He'll accept them gladly.
I will, and I will grind them up and put them in my coffee and sip them every morning.
But I think that is everything. We want to thank you so much for sticking with us for Oktoberfest, you know, listening to us for your October. We keep commenting like every week, like our numbers have been spectacular. Our listens have gone up triple and quadruple, and it's great to see people enjoying what we're giving you, and hopefully the only time we'll stop is, you know, if we all die.
Hopefully they're not just listening to us because we're trash.
Yeah, hopefully not. Let us know. Do you like us because are we trash? We'll just make a question poll on Instagram that just says, are we trash? But I think that is everything. Happy Halloween. We all know this is like our Christmas. So enjoy your Halloween if you're listening to this on Halloween. And if not, I hope you had a good time for Halloween. If you have kids, hopefully they had a good time. And remember, always show them horror movies. And I highly suggest I don't know if it went on Disney Plus yet, but you've heard us talk about it. The kids love a Serbian film. Get it. Get it. They'll never forget that you did it for them. So, as always, I am your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Xylia.
See you next time, it's Mike.
See you later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store. Back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
On with the new Fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal. We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotape.